Francis Sheehy Skeffington, born Francis Skeffington, was a well-known Irish writer and radical activist, known publicly by the nickname Skeffy. He is now principally remembered as the victim of a British war crime during the Easter 1916 Rising. He was also the real-life model for a character in James Joyce's novel, A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. He was a friend and schoolmate of Joyce, Oliver St. John Gogarty, Tom Kettle, and Frank O'Brien. He married Hannah Sheehy in 1903, whose own surname he adopted as part of his name, resulting in the name Sheehy Skeffington. They always showed the joined names unhyphenated. Early life. Francis Sheehy Skeffington was born in Ballyborough, County Cavan, the only son of Joseph Skeffington, of school inspector, and Rose McGorian of County Down. His parents had been married at the Roman Catholic chapel at Ballykinler, Co. Down in 1869. Francis was educated initially at home by his father, and later at the Jesuit community in St. Stephen's Green, Dublin. Francis's radical sympathies manifested early on through his enthusiasm for the constructed language Esperanto. In 1893, at the age of 15, he wrote a letter to a local newspaper in Cavan stating that Gaelic was irretrievably dead and the study of Esperanto would be more useful to the youth of Ireland. Later in life he became fluent in the language. This enthusiasm was not unusual at the time in leftist circles. James Connolly, one of the leaders of the 1916 Easter Rising, was also an Esperantist. Student years. In 1896, Francis enrolled in University College, then run by the Jesuits and located on St. Stephen's Green in the city centre. He stayed at the college long enough to earn a master's degree. Skeffington was a well-known figure at the college, individualistic and unconventional in temperament. He was active in student politics and debating societies, including the Literary and Historical Society, which he revived in 1897. His closest companions in his student days were James Joyce and Thomas Kettle. In protest against uniformity of dress, Skeffington refused to shave and wore knickerbockers with long socks, which earned him the nickname Knickerbockers. He was an ardent proponent of women's rights, and wore a Votes for Women badge. He was an equally ardent advocate of pacifism and vegetarianism, and he denounced smoking, drinking, and vivisection. He was a vegetarian and a teetotaler, but he did permit himself chocolate, and apparently he was often seen with a bar of milk chocolate in his pocket. James Joyce enrolled at University College in 1898. He was 4 years Skeffington's junior but only 2 classes below him. He left a fictional portrait of Skeffington in A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, under the guise of a student named Mackin, who was described as a squat figure in a shooting jacket and breeches with a blunt-featured face, and a straw-colored goatee which hung from his blunt chin. Joyce's alter ego Stephen Dedalus remembers him saying, "Dedalus, you're an antisocial being, wrapped up in yourself. I'm not. I'm a Democrat, and I'll work and act for social liberty and equality among all classes and sexes in the United States of the Europe of the future." Later Mackin is seen standing in a lobby after class, canvassing signatures on a petition for universal peace, under a picture of Nicholas II, the Tsar of Russia, who was a proponent of disarmament. Mackin began to speak with fluent energy of the Tsar's rescript instead of general disarmament arbitration in cases of international disputes, of the signs of the times, of the new humanity and the new gospel of life, which would make it the business of the community to secure as cheaply as possible the greatest possible happiness of the greatest possible number. Stephen expresses indifference to these goals and gestures at the picture of the Tsar. "If we must have a Jesus, let us have a legitimate Jesus." to which Macon replies, "Daedalus, I believe you're a good fellow, but you have yet to learn the dignity of altruism and the responsibility of the human individual." Writing to his brother Stanislaus about the above passages, Joyce jokingly referred to Skeffington as hairy Jesus. In the fall of 1901, Skeffington wrote an essay advocating equal status for women in the university, commissioned by St. Stephen's, the new literary magazine of the college. The essay was refused publication by the censor, and at James Joyce's suggestion, Skeffington then published the essay as a pamphlet, along with another essay by Joyce which had been similarly censored. Although Joyce and Skeffington disagreed with each other's politics, they both resented censorship, and agreed to co-finance the print run of 85 copies and distribute the pamphlet to newspapers and prominent Dubliners. Career in politics. After graduating from University College, Skeffington worked as the college's registrar and as a freelance journalist, contributing to socialist and pacifist publications in Ireland, England, France and North America. In 1901-02 he taught in St. Kieran's College in Kilkenny, where a colleague and friend was the school's English, French and history master Thomas MacDonagh. The two also lodged in the same house in the city. On the 26th of June 1903 he married Hannah Sheehy, a teacher at the Rathmines College of Commerce. They jointly adopted the surname Sheehy Skeffington. Hannah's family were a prosperous farming and milling family in County Cork, and her father had been a nationalist MP, and had been imprisoned no less than 6 times for revolutionary activities. Together Hannah and Francis joined the Irish Women's Suffrage and Local Government Association, and the Young Ireland branch of the United Irish League. They also supported the Women's Social and Political Union, which lobbied for women's rights in Britain. Shortly after they married, Francis organized a petition to lobby for women to be admitted to University College on the same basis as men. When the university refused to take that step, Francis resigned from his job as registrar in protest, relying on Hannah to support him for a time. In 1907 Francis wrote a novel, In Dark and Evil Days, not published until after his death in 1916. In 1908 Francis published a biography of the Irish Republican agitator Michael Davitt. In 1912 he co-founded the Irish Women's Franchise League with his wife Hannah, and was made co-editor of the League's newspaper, The Irish Citizen. The Irish Women's Franchise League agitated for votes for women. Members included his brother-in-law Tom Kettle and his friend Thomas MacDonagh, as well as all of the non-nationalist suffrage activists of the day. In 1909 Francis and Hannah had a son, Owen. They were much criticized for refusing to have him baptized. During the 1913 Dublin lockout, Francis became involved in the Citizens' Peace Committee, a group formed by various people including Tom Kettle and Thomas MacDonagh, with Joseph Plunkett as secretary, whose goal was to reconcile the employers and workers. The workers were willing to negotiate, but not the employers. Sheehy Skeffington joined and became a vice-chairman of the Irish Citizen Army when it was established in response to the lockout. Francis lent his support on the understanding that the ICA would have a strictly defensive role. He resigned when it became a military entity. Sheehy Skeffington testified before a tribunal in 1913 as a witness to the arrest of the leading trade unionist Jim Larkin on O'Connell Street, and the subsequent police assault against a peaceful crowd, which had occurred on the last weekend of August 1913. His testimony stated that he was in the street with a group of women caring for a person who had already been assaulted by the police when a member of the Dublin Metropolitan Police charged towards this group with his baton raised. He reports that it was only because he called out the policeman's number that the man was dissuaded from the violence he had so clearly intended. He said that he was later abused by a gang of policemen showing clear signs of intoxication in the yard of the police station at College Green, where he went to make his complaint, and at their offices he had no control over the behavior. In 1914, on the outbreak of World War I, Sheehy Skeffington campaigned against recruitment and was jailed for 6 months.